All right, welcome to a new edition of Keefer's Corner. I'm Jeremy Nygaard. That's Nick Pack. Coach Keefer. Coach, how are you doing tonight?
Doing outstanding.
I would guess that you would feel pretty good after making it through 7 weeks of the conference schedule and yet to take a loss this last week. No, 6 weeks. 6 weeks of the conference schedule. 7 straight wins overall. 6-0 in the conference, including a win against the Prescott Cardinals, who were also undefeated in conference and undefeated on the season.
Yep.
And they came into King Field, and we took care of business.
We did. It was a great game to get a win in, no doubt about that.
So I got to start from the very, very beginning of the game because Nick and I were distracted by all the other stuff that was going on. We missed the coin toss. We usually try to watch a coin toss. And so we win the toss.
Yes.
And we elect to defer. So that was the first thing that kind of took us by surprise. What was the thinking behind doing that?
I'm confident that we would stop them. We've done that most of the year. I think if we've won the toss, I think we've deferred. Doesn't mean we will always do it, but I think there's a thing too with with our group that last year these kids did play in a level 4 game. They've played in big games before, and certainly this was a big game, but I thought that was an advantage for us going in that we had been there before. And maybe, for Prescott, last year they're 2-5, and they're 7-0, and that's, it's the emotions are different for a team that hasn't been there. And I thought it would be good for us to be on defense, and that actually turned out to be a pretty good call.
It turned out to be a great call because in my thoughts, I think I'm not going to speak for Nick, but I think Nick too. We've been so good on offense. Mm-hmm. That I guess in my mind, and maybe because I'm a go for it kind of guy, I think you've noticed that. If we take the ball and we go right down and score, could be the most deflating thing to happen to a team.
That's true. I think it's equally deflating if you stop them and then go down and score. That because then you got 2 things that are going your way right off the bat. I don't know. I mean, I think you emailed the stats. We've given up 22 first quarter points in conference play, and they were all in one game. So every other opponent's been 0. So, I mean, we've obviously played some good defense. That's maybe that's not what people think of first when they think of us because we have been prolific, but scoring. But the D has been pretty solid.
And then 3 negative plays. It was backwards, both by great defensive plays, and then I think it was a fumbled snap or something, and then so 3 negative plays, punt. So now, now we're both going, great call. We would have deferred. We would have deferred too. Yeah. And then so now we go on offense, and the drive gets you where you want to go. Talk about that first drive. Was it scripted? Was it kind of just a go with the flow? Was it just
first one was scripted? But we were. I think it was 3rd down. We had 3rd down conversion on literally the first set of downs. We had a couple runs, and we did not block 58. He's a really good player. David Renier, I think is how you pronounce it. He's a handful. So it was kind of a broken play where Taden Haldorf, our first couple options were covered. And Taden was a pass protector, and he just saw an opportunity and leaked out, and Gavin just dumped it to him. That was actually, they kind of ad-libbed that, and that was a nice gain, a nice pickup, and then I think we scored maybe the next play. We did a dash that we felt pretty good about. The quarterback just kind of break and contain, and we were able to, get in the end zone. Gav made a nice run. When you tilt the ends, it's hard for, that's great for closing, and it's not great for pass rushing,
So then you double down with that, kick off again, and you get them to punt again. Now, I can't remember if we scored the second possession or was it the third possession, but essentially the first half, we talked, and I felt like it was won by your defense. Your defense came out that game and said, we're going to show you what we're made of, and we're making that statement.
I thought our run defense, we allowed 37 yards rushing, and they've been putting up some. In fact, I think going into the game, they had averaged more yards per carry than we had been averaging. So to hold that team to 37 yards, I thought that was pretty impressive. That was a really good job by our defense. Our other kid that I thought Dane Vienendahl played a great game, and that might be one of the best games I've ever seen a cornerback play. And that's intended to be a compliment for the Russell kid. The Cody Russell is a really good player. And Dane shut him down. I mean, I believe Cody had one catch on Dane, and he did have a touchdown. Got him for a slant, but I think I believe Dane had like 6 pass breakups, which that's amazing. And his coverage was really good. I also thought Dawson Viendal had a lot of good coverage. He had a couple, where they hit him on some plays. There was a one little technique thing that we were going to work on him with, but I really thought our cover guys played well, and I thought we did a good job of making their quarterback uncomfortable. We brought enough pressure. I don't know how many sacks we got for sure, but I think we maybe got like 6. Does that sound right?
Yeah, I mean,
I know
a lot of.
Drew Viendal had a couple. Andrew Thompson had a couple. I know Brody Everett's had one.
Yep, that was a huge one. The one he came off the edge. He had in high school. They're all considered run plays, right? So
that comes off.
There was a lot of negative rushing yards.
Right.
You mentioned that they only ran for 37 or whatever yards. They actually were -10 at halftime. Is that what we said? Because they had like 81 passing and -10 rushing in the first half. But then to stay on the defensive theme, what they didn't do a lot in the second half was even try to run. Right? They basically went exclusively, not necessarily exclusively, but they relied very heavily on the throw game.
Yeah.
I think they ended up throwing for 200 yards.
Right.
When we got to the quarterback and put pressure on the quarterback, and the ball had to come out quick, those were the incompletions. At one point, I mean, he had, I don't even remember what the number was, but he had a significant number of incompletions and not very, very many completions. But then kind of started to get in the groove later in the game. Did Prescott do something different schematically as far as where they were putting their receivers or how they were blocking that? Because they started to have more success in the pass game later in the game. And they never got within one score, but I mean, it got to 9 or got to 11, then it got to 10. Was there something noticeable that they did differently in the
I think there was a couple things. I felt like going through the game the next day, like whenever we were close to the quarterback, when we were even, or if he saw a blitz, I felt like that had an impact. And I don't think we did quite as good a job of getting as close to him. And I don't know if we didn't quite blitz quite as often or if they just protected a little bit better. But they definitely had more success in that second half throwing the ball. There were a couple of them that I felt like we had really good coverage right there, and they just hats off. I mean, if you don't get pressure on him, Teddy Bernick, he's a very accurate thrower. I mean, he can put the ball on. I was very impressed with his accuracy, and thought that going into the game. That's why we thought it was important to really, get him uncomfortable, pressure him, hit him. And I thought we did a good job overall. I mean, it wasn't perfect. Prescott's a good team. Nobody's going to argue that they're not a very good team. So.
Right. So flipping over to the offensive side of the ball, I think during the game, Nick made the comment that we had punted multiple times, which maybe was the first time all year we punted multiple times.
We punted quite a few times at Mount Horeb too.
Okay. Yeah. So, but still ended up with 41 points in a game where it didn't seem like we were hitting on all cylinders. Was it just our perspective? It seemed like there was a couple miscommunications in the backfield. The one on a Gavin fumble, a couple other times where it was just like Taden and Gavin maybe didn't seem like they were on the same page.
Yeah, there was the fumble to start the second half was something we were actually excited for, to run this play. It was a thing that we had kind of figured out. We thought we had something, and I think it was just a mesh, and we were reading the backside thing, and I think maybe Taden just maybe wanted the ball, and I think Gav tried to pull it out, and it just popped out. I mean, so it's a thing that you just got to practice that stuff and not let that happen. So I mean, that was totally that was self-induced, that turnover, and that gave them life, and that's not how you want to start a half, obviously, right? I mean, you don't want to turn it over we on the 30 or 35 somewhere, it's short field, and then we actually I felt like we did play some pretty good D, but we had a couple. We had a 3rd and 11. They converted. 3rd and 6, we got a personal foul. I opportunities to stop Prescott, and we just didn't quite get it done. I'd say overall the body of work defensively was pretty good. No, the second half obviously not as good as the first, but
like you said, Prescott's a good team.
Yeah,
and so one person can say, well, what happened in the second half, or is it more about how dominant your defense was in the first half? Like they played really well in the first half, and they played their game, and then Prescott's going to score. It kind of was almost a lot like the Somerset game, where
I
jump ahead
that analogy,
and then you're not comfortably, but you get a good lead, and then all of a sudden you go score for score.
Yep.
And it's like, well, we're not going to take risk chances on defense when a blitz or all this crazy stuff for a big play. We're going to make you go third down, fourth down. It was a fourth down that Russell and Dane. That was a collision. It was off to their side. Russell, I think Dane probably hit him 3 yards short, and Russell carried it for the first down. But I did say it too. I thought that was not Dane's best game. It's probably the best game I've seen a high school cornerback play.
I would agree. And like if you look real closely at Dane Beandahl, he may be our best defensive player. I mean, that kid is playing lights out. He's a very good tackler. He's really, I mean, we knew he was going to be good, but man, he's one of the best defensive players in the conference, in my opinion.
I agree. So, but then flipping off offensively, and I had one of your coaches I was talking to asked me, so who was the offensive MVP this game? And it took me a while. And I finally said, well, statistically, it'd be Gavin Sell. I mean, he ran for probably the most yards, obviously threw a touchdown or two. Statistically, probably him. However, it's just how they've been all year where, Taden Haldorf quietly got 130 or whatever it was yards. But that kid can block. When he lead blocks, he hurts them.
Yeah, he's a hammer.
And then, so a question I wanted to ask last week, I thought 2 weeks ago, Jimmy Kropelnicki had one of his best games. He didn't have any catches, but he did a great job of getting that edge and just allowing the edge. And pregame, I was talking about that with Jeremy, and then all of a sudden we had a couple little pop passes to him, which really, really loosened up that pocket or the people in the box, if you will. So I thought those 2 games from Jimmy were probably very outstanding.
Jimmy's he's a really good player. And I think he's one of the best tight ends. I don't know who blocks better than him in the league. If you don't look at a blocking tight end, and we use him in a lot of different ways, he is certainly very skilled at catching, and I like the way he runs when he gets it. I mean, he's a really important piece for our team. Obviously tight end. He's just so versatile with the things that he can do, and he's doing a good job. He's mixing in, on the defensive end, and done a really nice job there too. He's physical, man. He's a strong kid. He's got a great work ethic, and one of the best things about Jimmy is he's a junior, and he loves it. He's just going to do nothing but work to get better. So that's exciting.
We did see for the first time all year a team that had kind of had our number when it came to the spice package. And so we weren't super successful.
Yeah.
We did have the one where Gavin gets out and it looks like he's trapped and then just throws it in, that's just fun to see because it's one of those where 11 guys on defense and the coaches on the sideline think that it's
the guy to stop,
and then they don't.
Right.
But we didn't have the success, and we talked about at the middle part of the game where, hey, if we score again on this drive, are we going to try to go for 2 or are we going to kick the extra point to make a 3-possession game? Well, at what point in your mind did you know for sure, hey, we're going to kick that extra point?
As soon as I realized we were up by 16 and we could make it a 3-point possession, I felt like, the way the game had gone, 58's a handful, man. He is, you're not going to, there's a lot of kids, if we're, similar abilities, our guy can block this guy. This is a case where that wasn't going to happen. And it changed, it changed the things we wanted to do.
Right.
And, so then in light of that, I felt good about, Wes Chapin he's going to make that extra point. He's been, consistently coming to practice, and I've been telling Wes, and I believe this, there will be a time before this journey is done when he's going to make a huge kick. He's just a high character, high quality kid that everybody respects him. Worked his butt off in the weight room. He's one of our strongest kids, believe it or not. As a, maybe that wouldn't be commonly thought of as a kicker, but he's strong as heck. And he's gonna hit a big kick or two before this thing is done. So I had a lot of confidence in him in that circumstance, and he came through.
The other one I got to ask you about, and Nick was maybe hoping to ask you about this one, but the fourth down play in the middle of the field.
Yep.
I don't remember exact time of the game.
I think about 7 minutes left in the game. I think we were on a 46. We had 54 yards to go.
And there's two guys standing on the top of the press box that don't know a whole lot that thought, God, we should probably punt this one.
Oh, really?
And I never want to punt.
That's interesting.
And what was the score at that time? We're up 2 possessions.
11. I want to say it was a
10 or 11. Right. Yeah. And so how much thought went in? Like, was that like, you knew on third down, we're going for it on fourth down?
Yeah, I kind of thought we were probably going to go for it. Okay. And honestly, a little bit of it was, they were moving the ball a little bit, right? And I just felt like we're going to make this play. We're going to get this thing done, and we're going to go score. And I just was confident in our guys that we'd get it done. And if we wouldn't have, we would have had to make a stop on D. But I just was confident that our guys were going to figure out a way to do it, and they did.
Okay, so a hypothetical. The official sees our tackle jump off sides, throws the flag.
Yeah.
Now it would be 4th and 8. Now what do we do?
4th and 8 might have changed the thing. Okay. That likely would have been a punt scenario, I would think. 4th and 3 is a lot different than 4th and 8. I think 4th and 8, and that would have been that'd be maybe a bridge too far, I think, for me. So probably would have punted on that.
It was actually 9 was what was then, because we scored, and then that's when we went back to the goal for 2 again to make it a 3-possession game. So we went down to get the extra points to make it 17.
Yeah, we did. That's why we did it. Yep.
They came back with 8 to make it 9.
Yep.
Then we got the touchdown.
Yeah, they'd return that dang kickoff. And we've been so good covering kicks most of the year. Been really good. But we obviously didn't in that circumstance. I think we had a couple guys that maybe tapped themselves out because they were a little bit gassed, and that sometimes can be a problem. I don't know. I can't honestly say that I went through with a fine-tooth comb on that. I looked at what we do. We kind of over pursued it. They had a middle little wedge, and we had a bunch of guys that ran around it, and you have wedge busters that got to bust a wedge, and they did. They tried to hit it, but they didn't break it up good enough. And they were all of our kids were outside of it. That's how wedges work. So
outside maybe that kick return for touchdown, I think it was a all around very good, successful team victory. Might have maybe won all aspects of the game. So then now looking ahead, if we will, I think is it an advantage that you have the rivalry of Central? Because obviously after a game like this, you get up for it's undefeated versus undefeated. You clinch a guaranteed share of the conference title. Now it's always you have that letdown possibly. However, it's St. Croix Central. I don't think
I would agree with you. I think we're actually very fortunate to be playing them because it's a really good rivalry, and because of our geography and they've been really good, and it's been a really good series. We beat them in the playoffs last year. They handed it to us in the regular season. I think you can throw the records out. I think back to 16. 16, we were not a great team. We were okay. I think we're pretty average football team, and they were state champs that year. And we beat them at King Field.
Homecoming.
Yeah, and we were pretty fortunate to beat them. I don't remember what the score was, but it was a close game.
So that game, as a matter of fact, it was a rainy game.
Yeah, it was. I think we might have had a couple interceptions in the end zone.
We were outplayed. It was at halftime. I remember one of our guys in the booth turned to me and said, "Can you believe we're only down by 12?" And we played well enough to give ourselves a chance in the second half.
Right.
I think Colin Curtis broke off a couple long runs.
Yeah.
Central, who hadn't passed all year, decided they were going to become a passing team.
Yep.
And Jay Northup,
we did a little, I remember the play, it was just a little rub play, good against man-to-man, and by God, it worked perfect. And
yeah,
I think we completed a long pass. Was that to Jaden?
Yeah, that was a touchdown away from, it was on the Central sideline, and it was like, what just happened?
Yeah.
Because I don't think we made the playoffs that year. I don't think we were a playoff team.
I don't think we did.
And then after that, Central didn't throw the ball again, I don't think, for 8 weeks on their way to the state championship. Mm-hmm. That was a fun one. But I think you're exactly right that the records don't really matter.
It doesn't matter.
I had a real good thought that I was going to give to, but then I started thinking, no, I know what I was going to say. But thinking about that year and how this game, regardless of if it's 8-0 or 0-8, it's all the same. Have an opportunity for an outright middle border title, which, have we had one of those?
Not in my tenure.
Not
every time we've been a conference champ, we've shared it with somebody else, or else it's been a three-way.
Right. So this is the opportunity.
Yep.
And to add a little bit more of a layer, Central falls to Amory, and if they don't win, they're 3-4 going into the playoffs.
Right.
And it becomes a tiebreaker thing, which I think with the reduced number of teams, there'll be a lot of 3-4 teams that make the playoffs.
Right.
But to guarantee a spot in the field,
right,
they have to get a win against us on Friday night.
Right. Oh, they're going to be super motivated. I told our kids that immediately after the Prescott game, before we even left the gym. Hey, it's Central week, and you know that they're going to be fighting for their playoff lives. You know that this is a rivalry. So enjoy it tonight, but we got to be ready to roll, and we got a caged animal coming at us. So we fully expect to get their best, and that's why it's fun. That's good stuff.
How much of the Amory Central game have you had a chance to watch at this point?
All of it.
And what was your takeaway from that? Because we saw Amory play.
Yeah.
We haven't obviously seen Central. We haven't seen Central play yet, but what
Amory played much different defensively than they had played earlier in the year. I don't know exactly who they, had spoken with, or if they copied, some things other teams were doing. But it looked like they had a really nice plan, and they played, solid defense, and did enough on offense. I don't know if you remember, but we played Amory earlier in the year, right? Mm-hmm. I said this team is very, very talented, and I stand by that they are. They got some really talented kids, and they had a really good plan, and they played well, and hats off to them.
And I believe if they win, they have Altoona next week, I believe, right? And then they could be a 3-win team.
Mm-hmm.
Or as Osceola have Altoona, 1 or 2 does.
But you could have Amory, you could have Osceola. It's possible that 6 middle border teams could get in.
Right. So at what point, obviously this is Central Week, this is win the middle border conference outright. At what point do you start looking at potential matchups? Is not till Saturday, or is
Saturday? It won't even. It doesn't do any good, because it's completely speculation, and it's almost blind speculation, because I could never predict. Can you predict?
I like to try.
You like to try, but how many times do we? You don't know what you're going to get, and it's. You don't control that, so you control what you can control. The controllables are, let's play a great game against Central, and then, hopefully we get over that hurdle, and then then we'll start looking at, hey, well, who do we have? I think, when is the field analysis? Is it 10 in the morning on Saturday or whatever? But, yeah, so I guess that's when we'll start grinding, and,
I correct me if I'm wrong, but you're probably always game planning that week, and you're still putting in a little here, a little there that you might use later on in the conference, later on in the postseason, something like that. So you're in certain things here and there, but that's not for a specific opponent. It's for when we need it.
Without a doubt.
So without a doubt. Basically, starting last week, it was almost a 1-week season. Was okay. Now we play for the share, we play for the outright, and now we play to keep playing.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
and it's it would be important to our kids. It's a big deal. the higher the seed, obviously, the more home games you get, and that's great for us. That's great for our fans. To be able to play at Kingfield, that's a big deal. So yeah, it means a lot to us. I mean, both sides of this rivalry have a lot to play for. I think so. Makes it fun.
I think there was one play on offense where Gavin was not the quarterback.
Yeah.
Was that staged when you went over to fix the shoulder pad? Or
no?
Okay. It was
just coincidental.
I saw him go over and do that, and I look back and I'm like, Graham's gonna take this snap, and he pops over. I'm like, oh, that's pretty ingenious. If that was something that was like, oh, let's fix that.
Coincidental. Yeah, we obviously we do some stuff, and we try to take advantage of utilizing Gavin at different spots and different times. I don't know how much our opponents have really prepared for that at all. I really don't, because we haven't done a ton of it. We've done it a little bit here and there. I hear coaches screaming when he's, if he lines up like in the slot. I hear, you can hear the other sideline screaming, but I don't know if they've really, like have a, big plan for that, because we don't do it that much. So I don't know, if people really dig that deep.
I feel like you got a lot of tricks left up your sleeve at this point in the season, though. It was Prescott, the opportunity to see Prescott again. Mm-hmm. Now, latest projections, which you say you put zero stock into, but they could be that biggest D5 team.
Yep.
They could slide down. But the reality is that Prescott could be a opponent that we see again.
Absolutely.
So were you keeping some stuff? You weren't emptying everything.
I didn't feel like there was a need to empty the war chest, so to speak. And I'm sure they've got some things too. You know what I mean? There's things that you practice for certain times, and just the way the season's unfolded, we haven't really had a lot of those, critical junctures. We had a close game there with Somerset for a while, and pretty close with, I guess, Ellsworth, although that wasn't quite as close as, the score at the end. And then, this one got closer, but we were still pretty confident with, the things that we were doing. Some of those things are maybe when you finally do kind of hit the wall a little bit and you need something.
So just when you said that, how many snaps outside of the first quarter this year have been taken not within within two scores?
I don't know.
I mean, I got to feel like
take away Mount Horeb and
Mount Horeb, I mean, they were up.
Yeah, they were up big.
And so the reason that we talked about the first half points is because that's the thing that the WIA needs. And I didn't realize it at all until I'm doing it. I'm looking at halftime scores: 34-0, 28-0, 30-22. I think with Somerset, they scored late. Was it 30-20, something like that? But then it was 14-0, 28-0, 34-0. That we haven't really, like you said, you haven't felt the need, because there hasn't even been, the games that have felt close, like this one when it got to 11, that felt close. Like, it's still two possessions, but I'm like, this game I'm getting nervous again. And so that's something that, we talked earlier in the season about even having guys play all four quarters, and we hadn't.
True.
Now we have, but we haven't done it at the pace that we grew accustomed to seeing the last 2 years. Is that just kind of the new identity where we're a no huddle but not hurry up team?
Yeah, no, I think there's something to that. I also think, we're a team that, like most D4 teams, a ton of your kids are playing both ways. So if you're going, I love going, fast and doing the spurts. And if you feel like you got an opponent on their heels, I think that makes sense. But if you're just going full throttle all the time, both teams have a gas tank, if you will, that's going to be depleted. So I don't know. You just kind of feel if it's really an advantage for you more so than the other team, then it makes a lot of sense to do it. And if you feel like it's not a huge advantage, maybe it's not the best thing to do for your team.
Yeah, I guess as a player, I always felt like the tank emptied a lot quicker defensively, because you were reacting. You didn't know necessarily what was coming. Offensively, you knew, when the play came in, you knew if it was you or if it was someone else, that if you can keep that team on its heels defensively, plus we're not having these long possessions offensively. Mm-hmm. You put a tired defense back on the field. I just think that empties the tank so much quicker on defense. And even when you're not huddling, like if it's not quick, the defense still has to always be prepared. Yeah. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I just think there's so much that goes into all of that our guys are certainly in really, really good shape. Mm-hmm. Even though you say, we're going both ways, they might not be able to do that. I think we're far more equipped to do that than any of our opponents. Because like you mentioned a couple weeks ago, mm-hmm. there's no way
they can't practice they can't. They can't practice like that. That's true. Another thought, just, like you think about kids that played really good in the game. Another kid that I thought really played good was Drew Vienendahl. Drew Vienendahl has been, he's just very, very solid. He's a good run defender. He had 2 sacks in this game. He's another guy that, he's just, really, I'd say, improving and getting better. I thought Andrew Thompson had one of his best games too. I know he had I think he had a couple sacks, but he was a menace. He definitely got some hits on the quarterback, and he did a pretty darn good job on the run. And that's really important for us going forward, because we're going to face really good people, starting this week with Central. And we have to be physical, and I felt like that was one of the better games that he's played. So that was good to see, too.
So what can we expect from Central, other than, everything they can throw at you? Like, are they going to throw the ball? Are they going to run the ball? What's their
I think Central's, I think their deal is they want to run the ball, and they're going to, what they want to do is they want to grind you down and just keep possession of the ball, keep the ball away from you, drive, and they have 2 fantastic running backs. Both those kids they run really hard. They do, and they're good up front. They have some weapons. They can throw it. They got a left-handed quarterback that looks like he can throw it. I see a team. Central is a very solid team, and they're going to be stinging because I don't know when the last time Amory beat them, but it's probably been quite a while since Amory's beat Central. So I would expect them to be getting back to the basics, and I expect to see them coming out very physical. And we're going to see their patented offense. They've tweaked a little bit of what they're doing, but they're still a smash mouth option, and they're very well coached. If you're not sound, they're gonna find it, and they're gonna pick on you. And it's when you're facing an option team, as we know, you have to be disciplined. You have to do your job. You can't try to do someone else's job. You have to make sure you get the call and make sure that everybody is communicating, so you're doing the right thing, because that your job may change, depending on what our call is. So, there's a lot of discipline required when you're playing a team like Central.
One last thing about the last game, I think of like Gavin's maturity and growth as a quarterback. He had a lot of situations where he can buy a lot of time, obviously. He did. And he's not go ahead. Well, but it felt like early in the year he bought a lot of time, and he had to try and make the play. Mm-hmm. I think he's probably threw away 3, 4, 5 times, and he maybe ran half a dozen times for -1 to 1 yard, where it's like, I'm just going to win the next play.
Yes.
And I thought that was a very big step.
It is. It's really important. In fact, we just, being Monday today, we just went through, our, look back at the game for a little bit, their corrections and coaching points and things like that. And the coaching points were made multiple times. This is a fantastic decision. This is really good. Maybe early in the year, he'd be running around, he has that elusiveness, but he would still, wouldn't give up trying to make the play, and he'd get sacked or he'd throw it up. And now he's using that elusiveness to get himself, like you said, so he could throw it away or he could gain a couple yards. And I really feel like that's a huge thing for our team. And, the message is, he's heard that many, many times, but, just because you say it doesn't make it just happen. We all have to, we're a team, and, we're in the thing together. So if we, penalties, it's all of us. It impacts all of us. Decisions that we make impact the entire team. It's not just you. And, I think our kids are understanding that. So that's a big deal.
It does help when you do something like that and then you turn around and you still score in that position.
Right.
Hey. And that which leads me to we haven't really had a possession since Mount Horeb where we've been like, we need to score here. Like, we're defensively, we're like, insert team. They really need to score here or it's going to get away from them.
Mm-hmm.
We haven't had that offensively. However, I feel like every time we've gotten close, we've gotten the ball and we've answered. We haven't had to score. We made that 9 and 10 or 1-point game back into a 3-possession game.
So I felt like we answered. I know, like with Prescott scoring, the first score, I think we answered right after that, and then they answered again, right? And then I can't remember if we answered. I think we were the next team to score.
They never had consecutive touchdowns.
Right. Yeah. So they got the last one though with the kick return, and then we were another point that was kind of nice. At the end of that game, we had a nice drive to ice it. I don't know how many minutes were on the clock. Was it like 5?
I think it was more than that.
Maybe it was 6 or 7, but I know we had a nice drive there where we, were able to, continue to get first downs. We were able to get them to jump off sides a few times and keep the thing rolling. And then, it was great to have the victory snap at the end. That was great.
The first snap under center in 3 years, I think.
It could be.
Was that Gavin just didn't want to take the -3? He wanted to take the -1?
I think that's possible.
Because I'm like, we don't ever go under center. And Nick's like, hold on, we're going under center.
We're going under center, baby.
And it was the slowest.
It was a slow-mo
quarterback.
It was a slow-mo snap. It was. I saw that. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
No, that's good. That's when we generally practice it, we practice it out of gun. But, you can make a pretty compelling argument that it is safer to be under center and just take it, but you got to practice it. So.
Yep. So when we sat here after the Mount Horeb game, we were still, like we've talked about a number of times, replacing a whole bunch of seniors from last year.
Mm-hmm.
Gavin's moving to a new position. We didn't really know who we were, what we'd be.
Mm-hmm.
And the range of outcomes at that point in time, I think you could have made an argument that it would be very wide, right? With the highest range being we're not going to lose again in the regular season, to what if we don't ever stop anybody and give up 58 every game, right? I mean, that's what we saw. We didn't know Mount Horeb was going to be. We knew they were good,
right?
But I don't know that we were certain that they were going to be a top 3 D3 team, and they are, right?
Yeah.
So if we could go back in time, talk about the Mount Horeb game, and I say, Coach, we don't really have to worry because we're going to rattle off 7 straight. We're going to average 46 a game, right? We're not going to give up first half points to really anybody. We're going to break school records for points scored. You're going to get your 100th win in a game that's not close. Like, if I tell you all these things that have happened now, how would you have felt? First, would you have believed me? And then how would you have felt about where we sit right now going into week 9?
That's a good question. There's a lot of stuff to unpack on that one. I was very confident that our team was going to be a good team. I would never say that I expected us to, be this prolific offensively. Our offensive line got so much better. And Coach Lehman would tell you that he thought these guys were going to be great. And I thought we had some good potential, but it takes time. It does, because it's so much of O-line play is cohesion, communication, reps, getting better at doing things. And I certainly feel like we've really grown, and they play at a high level because they're smart and they communicate well, so that very, very rarely are we making mistakes. Like I can think of one time in the game where I think we had a kid that pulled the wrong way. Just a fluke thing.
I think we saw that, and
they smashed into each other.
They were talking to each other.
Yeah. But I mean, we just haven't had much of that, So, you're right. I mean, nobody knows for sure. It didn't feel great, giving up 58 points. And then you look back at some of the things and how we were playing at that point, and then you look at how we're playing now. All credit to Mount Horeb, but God, I'd love to play those guys again. That would be fantastic. And I really do believe if we played like we're capable of playing, and we had a lot, but we didn't really know what they were going to do. We didn't really have anything to go by from the scrimmage film either that we received. They kind of gave us a little JV look, but yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. I mean, yeah. It's been a great season, and you know, I can't say that anybody knew we were going to be like it's been, but hey, here's where we're at. We got a great opportunity in front of us, and we can't waste any days. We got to be getting better daily, and we got to just keep the team the main thing, and I feel like our kids are doing that, and we'll see what happens. But we got big stuff over at Central's Field. What do they call that thing? Is there a name for it?
Semp. Yeah, Semp. No, that's the gym.
Okay. That's fine.
Yeah, I'm not sure. Do you have any more questions about the Blackhawks this week?
I don't.
Okay, so this is It's Monday night, so JV is at Prescott.
Right.
We're recording this Monday night. This will be live on Wednesday. We cracked the rankings 2 weeks ago. We stayed, I believe, at the same spot, or maybe we just cracked them next week. It's been a long week. I anticipate that we'll maybe move up a little bit. Not that this matters to you, right? West Salem and Aquinas played each other.
Yep.
West Salem beat Aquinas.
Wrong.
So
Aquinas beat West Salem.
So on List Sports it says West Salem beat Aquinas 20-18. So I'm really not sure because I saw that Friday night.
All I saw was Aquinas beat West Salem, but now you make me want to.
I saw that Friday night. I was talking to someone Saturday. They said Aquinas beat West Salem, and then I said that to Sel today. He looked it up and it said West Salem beat Aquinas.
Oh,
either way,
yeah.
One of those teams is now not undefeated. Aquinas they had lost to Columbus previously.
Yep.
And so I believe then there was one other team that got knocked out of Prescott at 4, right? So
Mayville lost was another ranked team. Mayville.
Okay, yep. And they were, I think they were.
I know they were a ranked team. I know they lost. Yep. I'm obviously looking at other schools around a little bit.
What you're saying is you looked at the rankings.
I did, absolutely.
All right. Hey, all right. But yeah, there'll be some changes when that comes out Tuesday afternoon. People will see this Wednesday, so that's why we don't talk about that a whole lot. Moving on to after Friday, right? So you get the big win Friday.
Yeah.
We're talking Wisconsin, Rutgers, and Rutgers had played well, and all of a sudden we got Longo and Fickle looking like Cincy and UNC days, and they're hanging. They're putting the Blackhawk offensive numbers.
That was the best game that the Badgers have played, I think, probably under the Fickle era. I mean, Rutgers had been running the ball very effectively, and that running back Mungai he's tough, and Wisconsin looked really physical on defense, and then offensively they were able to run the ball, and the quarterback continues. It feels like he gained some confidence in the Purdue game, and maybe a little rhythm, and maybe they're starting to figure it out. I thought the O-line has looked good now 2 weeks in a row, so it's 2 games, and we're not to the top of the mountain yet, but it certainly appears that they're starting to make some progress.
Have you paid a lot of attention or any attention to like how the West Coast teams are fitting into the Big Ten?
Yeah, a little bit.
The success rate of going multiple time zones and then playing. Penn State won at USC.
Yep.
And Minnesota won at UCLA.
Right.
That was only the second and third example of teams
going from like the East Coast to the West.
Otherwise, like they were 1-11, I think, coming into the week. Like USC coming into Minnesota getting beat.
Well, also look at the teams. Southern Cal's a good team.
Yep.
Right. UCLA is not they're okay. They're not a great team.
Right.
They played some tough. I know they played a tough schedule.
Oregon's
very good
and beat, but that was at Oregon, right?
Right.
And Washington, who was in the national title game last year,
right?
Not as strong.
Not as strong.
Has really struggled to leave the West Coast. I mean, this is
both ways. When the West Coast goes east and vice versa. Yeah.
Right. But it's I think
maybe that's an advantage being in the Midwest.
It absolutely is, because I think there were some teams in the Pac-10 that thought we're just going to come into the Big Ten and just dominate. Oregon's played really well.
I don't know how they could think that. Really? You think teams thought they were going to come in and walk through the Big Ten?
I think Oregon and USC believed that they were going to be the very top of the Big Ten.
Interesting.
And it's been way more. They've just fit in to the middle of the pack way more than I think that was anticipated.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting.
And then after Saturday, Nick's team didn't win this week for the first time all year on Sunday.
They lost because everyone else won.
But the Packers all of a sudden look like
Pack looked pretty good.
that was another.
Yeah, we got the big three. That's good. We like those weekends. The Pack looked good. Jordan Love played well. Defense keeps causing turnovers, although they're not really getting enough pressure. And I just read a thing earlier today that they are they blitz the second from last frequency of blitz. So Packers don't blitz hardly at all, which is somewhat surprising. But it's working. They're getting the turnovers, so I guess
maybe they just keep the foot off the gas and just stay back in coverage.
Well, there's arguments, valid arguments both ways.
Okay. Anything else?
We're talking Saturday, Sunday. I know obviously you stay in touch with your alumni, all that stuff. Do you know offhand? I was looking the other day. I saw Paulson's now at River Falls. You go to River Falls.
Yeah, Davis.
Yeah. Do you know roughly how many BW alumni are playing now on Saturdays?
I do. I literally went and watched Colin Fritz in Whitewater. I traveled to Stout and watched Stout beat Whitewater for the first time in 21 years. It was a really good game. I thought both of those teams, boy, they throw and throw and throw and throw and throw. There really wasn't not a lot of running in that game. Neither team could really successfully, constantly run the ball, which was a little surprising to me. It was a great game. It was a 29-27. Whitewater had a really good kicker, and he missed like a 46-yarder by. He had plenty of leg. I mean, good Lord, did he have leg? He probably was good from 60, but he, maybe missed it a couple feet right. It wasn't near the end. It was I want to say it was in the third quarter. But it was a fun game to watch. So I got to talk to Colin a little bit. He traveled, which was cool. When you're a freshman and you're playing for Whitewater and you're traveling, that's cool. Mm-hmm. I just talked to Eli Coonan actually last night. They have a bye this week, so he was able to come home. And he's a specimen. He's up to 275. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's a monster. They lost a tough one to Northern State, but he looks good and things are going well. Andrew Klopp's playing at Duluth. Went up and watched Klopper a few weeks ago as they crushed Southwest State. That was a blowout. Let's think here. Am I forgetting anybody? We got Davis. We got Isaiah Randall. Isaiah's playing for UW River Falls, and he's a senior. And great kid, works hard. Had a hamstring injury earlier in the year, kind of put him back a little bit. Now he's working his way back. So that's exciting for Isaiah. I'm trying to think. I hope I'm not forgetting anybody. That seems. I think that feels about right. So I don't think I'm forgetting anybody.
If you are, I guess we'll hear about it, and then you'll have to talk about it next week.
Yeah, we will.
All right. Well, Coach, thanks for joining us again tonight. It's always fun.
But
next week we'll have a playoff game to preview, a home playoff game more than likely, and I'm going to make my prediction that it's going to be against the Middle Border team that we beat.
Yep.
And then we'll have however many more we need to go until we get to the end of the season. Last year we made it to level 4.
Yeah.
And this year it'd be fun to finally, instead of knock on that door, to kind of kick it in a little bit.
Sure would.
And do it from there. So for Nick Pack, Coach Keefer, Jeremy Nygaard, this was Keefer's Corner. We'll see you in Hammond on Friday night. So long.